Hey, do you want dessert? I'm going to grab something from the kitchen, I asked my wife of 13 years, Marie, removing my hand from her shoulder where she was leaning on me while we watched TV. No, I'm fine, honey. Well, maybe another glass of wine. The five-legged 600 beauty giggled, waving her glass at me from the sofa when I stood up. I took her glass and winked at her as I headed towards the kitchen, happy knowing that I was likely to get lucky tonight. Not that there was much doubt about it, since I had just returned 5 hours ago from a 3-week business trip, the longest trip I had taken in our 13 years of marriage. It was also the longest time we had ever been apart since we met and started dating in college. She was in her 3rd year, and I was in my 4th, 16 years ago. I learned very early on that wine was the secret to Marie's libido. Without him, she was an ordinary woman with a normal libido. A little wine, and she would become flirtatious. Lots of wine, and she would pass out. But between a little and a lot, there was a magical zone of a highly sexually charged woman who could put Scheherazade from 1001 Nights to shame. She was already giving subtle signals that 3 weeks was too long. Thanking my lucky stars for finding this woman, I went to the kitchen and filled Marie's glass with wine. Then I thought about what I wanted for a snack and realized that I wanted something cold and creamy, ice cream. This is one of my secret addictions, maybe my only one, but I worked hard, running 4 miles every day to burn off those calories. My addiction was not alcohol. There were no cigarettes. There was no gambling or adult films, and it was no addiction other than Marie's own. It was cookies and cream ice cream. I placed the small bowl on the counter, grabbed a spoon, and opened the freezer door. I looked, took the cookies and cream ice cream, and then stood there as solidly as ice cream, thinking about life and the universe and everything. You know that old meme about men holding the refrigerator door open while they look at it? It was me. You see, there was more than one bucket of ice cream in the freezer. There were 2. My favorite cookies and cream ice cream, which suddenly became more valuable to me than the woman who just a minute ago was the love of my life and more. The thoughts that ran through my head at that moment started with, what the hell? Went to, she's trying to kill me. And, oh God, she not only killed me, she killed our marriage. Just like that, I knew that my marriage to this bitch, this cheating bitch, whom I loved more than my own life, before I opened the freezer door, was over. You see, Marie doesn't like ice cream. She likes sorbet, but for some reason she hates ice cream. She never buys it unless I specifically ask. And yet we had butter pecan ice cream in our freezer. I explained that I have a severe pecan allergy. No, my mistake. I have a reaction that causes anaphylactic shock, severe anaphylactic shock, in less than a minute if I eat certain nuts. Pecans definitely fall into this category, and when we were only married a year or so, I nearly lost my life due to anaphylactic shock after eating a pork chop at one of our local upscale establishments. The pork chop was sprinkled with ground pecans to add extra flavor when fried, but this was not listed on the menu. I didn't have my epinephrine auto-injector, but luckily one of the other restaurant patrons did. But it still took long enough for the hospital to keep me for 4 days to be assessed for neurological damage, and I even had secondary anaphylactic shock in the hospital. Marie was there. She knew it. She held my hand the entire time I was in the hospital, except when the nurses or her bladder forced her to leave for a few minutes. Since that day, I have always, and I mean always, kept an epinephrine auto-injector within 10 feet of me, if not on me. But there was someone else we both knew who also loved ice cream. And his favorite flavor? Guess. Jonathan Williams. Jonathan fucking Williams was a bastard who apparently spent enough time at my house while I was gone to eat almost an entire gallon container of butter pecan ice cream. Jonathan Williams. Marie's last boyfriend before we started dating. Jonathan Williams, single, good-looking, 37, relatively fit, on the fringe of our social circle, owner of a cherry red muscle car he didn't deserve, lives only 20 miles away, closer to Marie's place of work. This bastard was in my house, and if he was here and ate enough pecan ice cream to make that dent in the bucket, he would be here many nights while I was gone. He was in my house, in my bed, and with my wife. Too big a jump. No, not at all. I called Marie every night that we were apart. She almost always answered my calls, but the times she couldn't, she always called back within 15 minutes or so. At the beginning of the trip, we talked for hours every day, even had phone sex almost every night. Later, around the 9th day of the trip, our conversations became shorter. I had no expectations or even nightmares about Marie cheating on me, but butter pecan ice cream suddenly made a lot of things clearer in my head. I was stunned. I was injured. I was angry. But I wasn't in denial. Marie cheated on me with Jonathan fucking Williams. It was hard to believe, partly because of the way they broke up. They were a hot couple until he was caught with another girl on the side. There was some dispute, about which I heard only vague details, which resulted in their breakup. Before this, they were both on the periphery of my social circle, so I didn't keep up with their relationship, no pun intended. I returned my favorite cookies and cream ice cream to the freezer, no longer feeling the urge to eat ice cream. Instead, I felt a deep desire for revenge, justice, to hurt those who had hurt me. I took a glass of wine and swirled the pale pink liquid in the glass. I must have been doing this longer than I thought, because I was brought out of my dark thoughts by Marie's voice from the living room. "Hank, honey, is everything okay? It's going to take you a long time to get the appetizer and wine." "Oh, I'll be right there. I need to wash the ice cream scoop. There was some residue on it," I replied, turning on the kitchen faucet to mask the sound. I needed a plan. I needed him quickly. It didn't have to be perfect, but it had to be good for now. I didn't want to have sex tonight, but I needed to find a reason not to have sex with her. It wouldn't be love. It wouldn't exist anymore. That would be sex from a cheap bitch. How quickly our thoughts can turn dark when they first get there. From love of my life, the most beautiful woman I know, to cheap bitch in such a short time. I went out with a glass of wine to Marie, but did not sit back on the sofa. "Thank you. Oh, where's your ice cream, Hank?" Marie grinned, knowing about my weakness, damn it. "I don't want regular ice cream anymore, not after the residue on the spoon." In fact, I didn't want anything, but I didn't voice it. I decided I'd better go to DQ and get a milkshake. "Do you want one?" Quick point, milkshakes and wine don't go together, so she'll say no, and that will allow me to get out of the house for half an hour to think. She won't go with me because she was already half undressed when she returned home. "Only if they have a Pinot Grigio milkshake," she laughed. "I'll ask you especially for you." I forced myself to flirt with her. "I'm not sure what they have. Would a milkshake with rosé work instead?" I continued. One of the best acting sketches I've ever done, saying it lightly and flirting without shaking, although my heart was beating so fast it felt like it would jump out of my throat. "Oh, definitely. Why don't you hurry up and get those milkshakes, and maybe there'll be another milkshake later," she replied, raising one eyebrow and swaying her hips so that her bare breast swayed under her half-open shirt. God, I used to love those little hints with her. I grabbed the keys, smiled at her, and walked out the door. 30 minutes to figure out what to do, figure out a plan for revenge, figure out how to avoid Marie. 30 minutes to at least start planning the rest of my life. I went out and got into Marie's car. She didn't like driving my truck, so me taking her car made it less likely that she would follow me if it took a little longer. I dialed the number on the phone without even fastening my seat belt. "Hank, how are you? Are you back from your trip?" My brother, Bobby, greeted me when he picked up the phone. "Yes, Bobby. Bobby, are you alone? Is Sue with you?" "Yeah, Hank, what's going on? Why do you sound like that, and why are you asking about Sue?" His voice suddenly became much more restrained, and the volume decreased. "Bobby, if you love me, just tell Sue I called to say hello, and that you're going to DQ for something. Please. I need you to meet me there, right now. This is one of those cases where you need help hiding the bodies. Bobby, my older brother by 18 months, and I have always been close, and always joked that if something happened, we would even help each other hide the bodies. Bobby was still my best friend, and I was his." Bobby didn't hesitate for a second. Suddenly, he became much less cautious, much more loud. "Sure, I'll help you with the truck tomorrow. No problem. We'll see you early in the morning. If we have time, shall we go fishing? God, Bobby was the fastest man alive in terms of thinking on his feet. That was the main reason why I called my older brother. His comment would certainly have calmed Sue if she had been tense at hearing him react to my voice and given us a reason to meet tomorrow for a long talk. Great. DQ on Michigan now, okay? Okay, brother. See you then at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Bye. I knew this was his way of telling me that he would be at DQ in a few minutes. He lived closer than me, so perhaps he would even get there before me, although I doubted it. I was driving fast, wanted to make the most of his time with Bobby when he got there, but also tried not to make the trip too long for Marie. He arrived less than 2 minutes after me, so we got out of our cars and walked up to the ordering window together. Nothing was said between us. He saw that I was shaking, but hide the bodies can be interpreted literally. He wasn't going to ask until we were further away from everyone else there. After taking our treats, we walked to the farthest table, sat down, and I said the words that finally allowed the reality of what was happening to spill out. I'm pretty sure Marie is either cheating on me or has cheated on me many times during my trip. Jonathan fucking Williams. I think Bobby was ready for almost anything except that. Well, maybe there was one thing he was less prepared for, and that was the fact that Sue could cheat. But the thought that Marie was cheating on me was a step lower for him. What? Are you sure? How? When? He started asking questions one after another. I came home, and there was butter pecan ice cream in the freezer, an almost empty gallon bucket. So if she doesn't cheat, she wants to be a widow. Bobby stared at me, mouth open, for 10 seconds before he said, "Damn." One word, but Bobby understood my logic within seconds. By the way, where is the auto-injector? Here it is, I replied, pulling the auto-injector out of my pocket. How long has this been going on? Who knows, but this is the first time I've realized that they seem to have made a home here while I was away. At this time, I need an excuse, a good one, not to touch her tonight. I know that I can't, that it will confuse her and make her understand that something is wrong. I need to not warn her to understand what's going on. Will you help? Yes, let me think. I saw the gears turning in his head. Suddenly, he smiled. Okay, how about using near death as an excuse to avoid it for a few days? Eh? I don't understand. Pecan ice cream is the answer. I ordered something that will cause anaphylaxis. I already told Sue that you went to DQ, then I said that I wanted to. We stopped, enjoyed our delicacy, and you started to go into shock. I use the auto-injector, then I take you to the hospital and call the girls there. With your medical history, the hospital will keep you overnight. This will free you from tonight, and tomorrow you can use it as an excuse to not touch her, maybe until Sunday. On Monday, you're at work, and we can really get going. I'll start tomorrow with a few calls. We'll both take Monday off and get the process started. Sounds like a plan. Bobby wasn't allergic and liked nuts, so it would work. Yes, let's start the plan. Go get your nuts. While he walked, I finished my milkshake. There's no point in throwing it away, even if it doesn't taste as good as it did an hour ago. He came back with the smallest ice cream that had nuts on it. Auto-injector first. I'll wait for your signal, but no more than 2 minutes, okay, brother? And just in case, I love you. I love you too, brother. You're the best big brother I've ever had. I chuckled as I took one of the smaller pieces of nut from his ice cream, which he immediately began to eat. Oh, brain freeze, he screamed as soon as I started. Redness, tingling, itching, constriction of the throat, sudden dry mouth when the tongue becomes swollen, ringing in the ears when the heart begins to beat wildly. I chuckled as the last breath left me. There seemed to be no air coming in, and I felt invisible hands squeezing my throat, suffocating me. Silently, trying not to panic, I counted to 20 before letting my hand hit the table. I saw Bobby grab the auto-injector and get it ready. I don't remember the needle sticking into my calf, but my last memory was Bobby counting the seconds while holding the needle in place. My next memory was of being in Bobby's car, and then the doctor shining a bright light into my pupils and shouting, "Mr. Preston, can you hear me?" Everything became clearer again. As Bobby predicted, I was left overnight. Marie was there. She changed clothes when Bobby called her on the way to the hospital, and even came in my truck. Sue was there too. Marie took me home the next day, and Bobby and Sue later returned the car to Marie. Bobby stayed close all the time, even shooing the girls away to take care of his little brother, which I think irritated Marie. He understood that I didn't want to be alone with her, so he made sure that I spent the rest of the weekend with him, except for the hours when I slept, feigning fatigue from the trip, and then from the hospitalization. I didn't have to pretend much as I was exhausted from tossing and turning all night. At one point, I remember Marie woke me up early on Sunday morning, saying that I was jerking violently and screaming her name. She was worried that I was having a nightmare. I was worried that this was not the case. Monday morning started out dull and gloomy, just like my life. I woke up better and rested, able to work again, so I got up and started getting ready for work, just like Marie. She kissed me as she left, told me she loved me, and I pretended I forgot some receipt from a trip that I needed to file for an expense report, which allowed me to get back into the house. As soon as she left, I texted Bobby that I was free at my place as soon as he was free from Sue. Bobby arrived later than I thought, but I was busy as soon as I finished calling to take the day off. I went online and Googled Best Family Law Attorney for Men in Indiana, and it gave me several listings. I checked who was on each list and who was local, or at least semi-local, when Bobby arrived. I especially liked that there was a woman in the top 3 on 4 lists. This was unusual, I thought. Marie and I didn't have children, so it wasn't necessary for him to be a lawyer for men. I just wanted someone who would fight like hell for me since it wasn't my fault. I also Googled Best Family Law Attorney Indiana. I added them to the list knowing that I would be using the free consultation so that they would not be able to represent Marie when the fight began. Yes, I already knew that I could never accept it. I would never accept it. Our marriage was over the moment I realized what butter pecan ice cream meant. Bobby arrived just as I completed my call list. Top 3 first, then top 3 lawyers for men. I knew I would end up choosing one of the latter, but like I said, I needed to make sure they wouldn't represent her. The first 3 came first because I thought I was more likely to miss them if somehow Marie knew I was looking. "Hey brother, where are you? I have something for you," Bobby shouted as he entered the house. "Here, in the office. Come in." Just in case, I minimized the browser and minimized the call list. I didn't have to do it, but I didn't know if he would come alone. He was alone. "Are you getting smart, Hank? Okay, you need to be like that. I brought you a gift, that's why it took so long." He handed me a small package. Inside, I found a small alarm clock, a ceramic dog, 3 miniature recording devices, and 2 thick pens. "What is this?" "Recording devices. The clock and the dog are cameras, see?" He pointed to the small lenses. "Voice activators are small, voice-activated, and can store up to 8 hours of recordings. Pens are like recorders, but can only store 2, but they have Bluetooth. If you have a phone nearby with the appropriate Bluetooth and app, you can transfer the data and reset them automatically, so you don't have to interact with them regularly, just get close. Their batteries last up to 30 days. I took them from Evan Smallwood this morning. Evan was the reason I was determined to become a lawyer for men. He had bad luck in his divorce after his wife, Karen, was caught expanding her horizons and legs with her boss 2 years ago. I knew that he suspected something and began to collect evidence, but did not close everything completely. She begged, she cried, he laughed, and then she destroyed him in her divorce. Indiana is a no-fault state. She got the best lawyer, and Evan made the mistake of posting the photos online. The judge didn't like it. Evan didn't go to jail, but it was a close call. The result was, she cheated, she begged him to forgive, but then she got 70%. He got 30% and community service, and still owes her child support while she's still widening her legs for her boss. Isn't life wonderful? This will not be my destiny, no sir. I wanted revenge, but I didn't want to risk ending up as someone's lover in prison. I have a list of lawyers I want to contact, I replied. So there's no chance. I didn't think so, knowing you, but a day or two to think about it. No, no chance. One time and that's it. This will always be true after that bitch from hell. Or maybe I should tell the first bitch from hell. I smiled bitterly. Before Marie, I was engaged, just 6 months, to my high school sweetheart, Michelle. College was great, I thought, for us as a couple, but Michelle soon discovered that it was also a happy hunting ground, or rather a happy sex ground, for the other guys. When I found out that she had slept with at least 15 guys since accepting my ring, I was furious. She didn't even have the courage to tell me to my face, allowing the health department to do it. She cried, I cursed. She said she tried to get rid of other guys before tying the knot, I cursed. And privately I cried. My 6 months as a monk after I got my ring back reinforced my belief that I don't like anyone playing with my toys or on my playground, and I have no interest in playing on someone else's playground. I wanted one woman for one man, and I was going to be one man for one woman. Although Marie wasn't my rebound when I started dating again, she was the first and only person I was intimate with after Michelle. Marie knew my story, heard it, and we met at the time Michelle made her last attempt to win me back. I have no doubt that Michelle loved me in her own way. I just couldn't accept the fact that she also loved others. So Marie knew my story, knew how I would handle cheating, and knew my once-and-done philosophy. Bobby knew too, of course, so his question was just a formality. And I knew, even better than his Sue, that he shared this philosophy, and if Sue ever cheated, I would help Bobby bring down as much death and destruction as possible on her. And damn, I loved Sue like a sister-in-law. I knew she was perfect for Bobby within days of meeting her, and I was the one who got them their first date 5 months later. Yes, the only couple I ever thought was more perfect than Bobby and Sue was Hank and Marie, and we already know the dark thoughts I had. All right, brother, if she cheats, and I admit it looks suspicious, we tie her naked to a post, pour honey over her, wait 12 hours, set the on fire, and try to put out the fire by peeing on her. Sounds good? Damn, Evan can probably help us with the alibi. He made me chuckle at that. We don't have to go to extremes. I don't want to go to jail. Now, regarding the bastard, we might want to go to extremes, but I don't know how we'll do it. We'll figure it out as we go, brother. And then Bobby grinned. Always been a master of rhyme. I have the skills to shake. The mood was lifted. Bobby always knew how to make me laugh. We worked on where to place the 2 cameras. I didn't think we'd film anything until at least my next trip, but it was still hard to figure out. Ultimately, I decided to place the alarm clock next to the TV in the bedroom. We didn't use it often, but it wouldn't look too weird if it was there. The ceramic dog was more complex. It didn't really fit in with the various knickknacks around the house, so it took a while. I finally gave up and placed it on top of the closet, which had a good view of the front door, but wasn't immediately visible. It made me wonder how Evan used her. The best thing to do is to put a pen in her car and in her bag. You can also put a recording device under the seat of her car, one in the kitchen and one in the spare room. The dog will pick up sounds from the living room, so you have all the obvious spots covered. What do you think, Hank? Why are there 2 in the car? The pen will simply be in the pen compartment when you need to write something down. She will be a backup. The voice activator will pick up conversations if she speaks on speakerphone. You can put a pen in her bag, right? Maybe. But basically, I'll need to place 3 of them. Let's call the lawyers. Hank and I spent the next hour and a half making appointments for the coming days with each lawyer on my list. Fortunately, we could hold one of them on the same day at 13th. The lawyer's office was close to Marie's office, so I thought I could sneak into her work parking lot and set up recording devices during my lunch break. I arrived at the parking lot at noon, and this may have been the first bad luck of operation, no trust but verify. One of Marie's coworkers saw me pull into the parking lot as she was leaving for lunch and waved to me. With luck, she'll just assume I'm picking Marie up for lunch and forget I came. I found out about this much later when she mentioned it to Marie 2 days later. Finding Marie's car, I tossed the pen into the pen compartment on the dashboard, then reached under the seat to install the recording device. I must have caught my hand on one of the seat spring mechanisms or something, because I felt the metal pierce the skin. Aw, damn. Then he closed and locked the door and headed to the meeting. I met the lawyer at 1:15. Why do doctors and lawyers always make people wait? I told him everything except that there would be several lawyers that I would meet with. He basically rolled his eyes at the ice cream evidence and didn't take my words seriously. He was ready, of course, for me to post bail if I wanted, but he said that no judge would buy it. I went to the new bank to do a few preliminary things, such as opening another account, and then headed somewhere to wait until it was the right time to return home. That night, I had to cope with sexual responsibilities. It's been too long since the last time. What I failed to do was put the second pen in her bag, but ultimately I decided it didn't matter. She worked in an office, it would pick up people's conversations, and I wouldn't be able to process enough to catch anything important. Life went on as usual for the rest of the week. I was able to check the cameras daily and the kitchen recorder and the recorder in the spare room. There was nothing on the device in the spare room, and the kitchen one only recorded idle conversations between Marie and me. I got close enough to Marie's car to connect my phone to the handle in the car, but the conversation, when I listened to it, only contained the conversation between us on Wednesday and nothing more. The conversation went like this: the sound of a door closing, the sound of a door opening, the sound of someone getting into a car, then the door closing, the car starting, some road noise. BRRR, 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 BR. My voice: "Hey baby, where are you now? I just got off work. What happened? I want to learn Chinese. Will you stop and take it if I order in advance?" "Certainly. Kung Pao chicken and maybe a side of fried shrimp bread." "Okay, I'm buying your flying. I'll see you when you get home, Marie." "Okay, honey, love you, bye." There were only the sounds of doors opening and closing and the occasional snippet of road noise, but that was all. On Friday, I was finally able to organize a ride in Marie's car to DQ where I met Bobby. We grabbed the recording device from under the seat and pressed play. The under-seat voice activator was a little different. My voice: "Aw, damn." I immediately knew something was wrong. I didn't hear myself on the handle when I caught my hand. The next sounds were the rustle of a door closing, a door opening, the sound of someone getting into a car, then a door closing. Road noise: stopping the car, opening the door, closing the door, starting the car. Road noise, and then the conversation that ended everything. BRRR, 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 BR. Voice of Jonathan Williams: "Hello. Hi, handsome. I just warmed up thinking about you." The treacherous skin purred coquettishly. "Oh, really? God, you were so good last week. I wish Hank wouldn't come back for another 3 weeks. I can't wait to come home to your little love nest." God, this made me sick, and looking at Bobby, I saw that he, too, was barely holding back vomiting, hearing this exchange of dirty metaphors and jokes between them. He grabbed my hand as I began to shake with rage. "So, when is this brainless idiot going on business again? Listen, you won't insult Hank. Not if you want to continue access to my treasure." Okay. Just when will we see each other again?" "I don't know right now. It all depends on Hank's schedule. And right now, he doesn't have anything on the schedule. Not more than once every 2 months, but he had just returned from a 3-week trip. I don't think he'll be sent out again anytime soon." 2 months? There is no way I can do without you for so long. Come on, baby, you have to help me. You have 2 hands, you don't need one of mine. We'll have to wait. Marie reproached him. "Oh, baby, Marie, don't be like that. You know I can't resist you, and you can't resist me. I have stood up to you very well for the last 15 years. Just because I let you get some doesn't mean I can't shut down again if you get too pushy. Yes, I enjoyed our little adventure at home, but I got along just fine without it all these years. I can do it again. And there it was. She admitted it, but it also became apparent that this was truly the first time they had gotten together. That didn't mean there hadn't been something shorter before, but one could assume that this was her first time out of wedlock entirely, at least with this bastard. Listen, I'm finishing. Hank was sick over the weekend, and although we made love last night, it's not enough. I heard Williams whine a little at this. I intend to rock his world tonight, and I only called to recharge a little and tell you not to call me. I'll call you myself when he leaves again. I still love you, Marie. I know I screwed up, but I still love you. I love you too, Jonathan. But I love Hank. You're just a reminder of what could have been if you could have kept it in your pants back then. Marie, you should feel more for me than for Hank. After all, you were with me while he was away. You were my wife, not his, while he was gone. You. He wasn't there yet. While he was gone, I heard her emphasize it in her voice. I took nothing away from my time with you. He was absent, and I allowed you to take advantage of the remnants of my emotions, my love, my attraction. Yes, I still feel something for you, Jonathan, but I do not love you. I love Hank. This is a good way to show it, you unfaithful bitch, I thought. I'll take what I can get. Bye, Jonathan. I'll call you soon, and we'll see you next time Hank leaves. Road noise. Stopping the car, opening the door. And that's when it became clear why this conversation was not on the handle. What is this? Marie's question didn't provide context, so I didn't know what she was looking at. What? Clicking sound. Click. Click. What the hell? Crap. She fell silent for a moment. Why is this here? Really? And then silence. I don't know if the voice-activated device went offline or was on all the time, but she came back a moment later. Here it is, she muttered. Crap. Hank must have put it here. And I knew that she had found one of the bugs. Based on what we've already gotten from the two, she knew the pen was a bug. I was suddenly glad I didn't put one in her bag. Okay, so enter the PIN code. 1 on 234. Done. Erase entry. Ready. Damn, I'll have to re-record this tomorrow. The sound of a door closing. The sound of a door opening. The sound of someone getting into a car, then the door closing, the car starting. Some road noise. The sound of a car stopping, a door opening, a door closing. She must have gone to work on Wednesday. The sound of a door closing. The sound of a door opening. The sound of someone getting into a car, then the door closing, the car starting. Some road noise. BRRR, 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 BR. My voice again, almost certainly talking about Chinese food. Hey baby, where are you now? I just got off work. What happened? I want to learn Chinese. Will you stop and take it if I order in advance? Certainly. Kung Pao chicken and maybe a side of fried shrimp bread. Okay, I'm buying, you're flying. I'll see you when you get home, Marie. Okay, honey, love you, bye. There were only the sounds of doors opening and closing and the occasional snippet of road noise, but that was all. And I understood. She found a pen, but not a recorder. She erased one recording, or at least the conversation she heard, but not the other. Bobby looked at me. She knows you suspect something. She found a pen. Has she changed in any way since Tuesday? She literally killed me with sex every night. She agreed, a little more than usual, but I didn't notice anything different. Too much information, brother. But how are you? Were you able to hold on? I was like Reinman, brother. Tuesday, Wapner style. I was happy-go-lucky, and as normal as I could be. She must think I'm Raymond and Forrest Gump's baby. Bobby laughed at this, clearing the situation. It's strange that he was more stressed than I was after we found out the truth, but that's how it is. Okay, Bubba Gump, you're great at being careless. Just don't start talking about shrimp. Or Kmart. And we both laughed. It was nice to laugh. In that moment with Bobby, I knew I would come out of this in one piece. No matter what happened, I knew I had one person who would always be there for me, who would always keep me grounded. He's not necessarily someone I always wanted around, as I couldn't imagine Bobby would look good in a little black dress, and he definitely wouldn't be the one who rocks my world at night, but it was something I could hold on to during the dark days I assumed lay ahead. So, I have already visited 4 of the 6 lawyers. I think this can be used. There's no chance she'll do anything at home, and she's smart enough not to look for hidden cameras or microphones or anything in the house. We made a mistake with the handle, but we have enough, I think. What do you think, Bobby? I guess I'll follow your lead on this one, little brother. You control everything. I will support you, give you an alibi, help you hide the body of the bitch or Williams. Whatever, brother. Brothers, faithful wives, cheating bitches, then bastards. Brothers first. Hell, I'll even be your cellmate, but I'll take the bottom bunk, and you'll just be the bottom if it comes to that. Hell no, brother. Hell no. I laughed in response. The darkest and most devastating event of my life, and I joke about gay prison with my brother. This is friendship. This is love. This is my brother Bobby. But back to the main bitches, I want to destroy the bastard, and I would like to burn the bitch. We need a plan, but I would prefer not to become cellmates. My smile stayed for a few seconds and Bobby allowed it. But when it started to fade, Bobby immediately stopped smiling too, and we started planning. So, what does Goat have that we can destroy, except Marie? Sorry, except that bitch. Well, let's go in order. He has a life. Bobby nodded. He's got health. He's got a gun between his legs. He's got a house. He's got a job. He's got a car. He's got a reputation. That's all. I stopped there. This car. I think he might value this thing right next to a gun between the legs of a house or work. Definitely above a house, since he bought it so he could have a garage to store the damn car and work on it. Bobby and I were talking about Goat's classic 1969 Sierra Tan Poly Plymouth Barracuda convertible with the CUDA package and the big 440 big block engine. It was one of the rarest versions of one of the hottest cars of its time. While it wasn't the Barracuda of automotive fame, it was the one that set the stage for the famous Barracuda, with the last significant overhead engine before the legendary Hemi arrived. The car wasn't worth $800K or more like some of the 70 CUDAs, but in the condition he kept it in, it was still worth $90, $100K. He inherited the car from his grandfather, who unfortunately suffered a stroke a week after buying it new in 1969. His grandfather never got to drive it, but didn't want to sell it, and when he died in 27, Kozel inherited a nearly 40-year-old Barracuda with just 132 miles on the clock. It was an outrage in some respects, but it was still a nearly new classic car. Since then, Kozel has probably added another 500 miles to the odometer, but has used it very, very rarely. Me, I'm a Corvette man and Bobby loves Mustangs, but Goat actually owned one of the classic cars, while we were just daydreaming about a Stingray or a Mach. Yeah, losing this car probably hurts almost as much as losing a gun between your legs. But I can't just destroy such a beauty. CUDA didn't do anything to me, only the Goat that owns it. It's like a pebcac problem, even though I would say that with the CUDA it's more absap. Absap? A goat between the steering wheel and the pedal? I high-fived him with a smile when he understood. So, we don't damage the car, but we deprive him of it. How do we do that? Steal? Send to some deserving millionaire? I like the way you think. But I don't know anyone we could sell it to, and I'm not sure we wouldn't end up in jail if we stole it. Does Evan know anyone, Bobby? I mean, he's still dealing with the fallout from being a bitch from hell. Maybe he knows someone. After all, if I leave town, I'll have an alibi, and we know that there is a chance that the Goat and the bitch will get back together. I don't see it right now, brother. She knows you're suspicious because she found the pen. She'll look for the cameras and eventually find them, I think. She'll play nice because she doesn't know exactly what you know, just what you suspect. So she will play a good wife for a while. Now, if you want to stay with her for a year or two, it's up to you. And he coughed slightly, which is suspicious. Sounded like the word cuckold. thin chicken Bayak let me know that he was thinking about this option. His not-so-subtle way of saying that if I don't leave her, I'll be a chicken and a cuckold. Of course, a fake trip followed by removing all the bugs a week later might make it look like she got away with it. The trip would be for you to try to get her to get a bug, and removing it a week after the trip would mean you didn't find anything and decided that your suspicions were wrong, and you don't want her to find bugs and start something because of a wrong suspicion. It might reset her thoughts. I'm not sure I have the guts to stay with her. It's clear from the call that she thinks she loves me. I'm not sure I can agree with her being with the goat while I'm away, but she thinks so. Perhaps she will never do this again, realizing how close she came. Or she will become much more cunning, and I may never catch her again. But one way or another, we must remove the goat, and soon. Okay, let's think about it tonight. I'll contact you tomorrow morning. Let's go fishing or something. In the meantime, from now on, you and I should check our cars every day and only talk about this on work phones or personally. She can just stick a recorder somewhere on you or me if she figures out how to do it. I think we should actually take the boat tomorrow and go fishing. Let's leave the phones in the car too. Aren't you going to Frito me? Put me out of my misery? I asked, referencing Frito's fate in The Godfather Part Roman 2. I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, Bobby joked in response. We hugged and agreed to meet at 7 a.m. the next day to go fishing. It wasn't unusual, so it wouldn't upset Sue in any way, although Marie might be understandably worried. That night, Marie tore me apart again in bed and left me a trembling mass. As she curled around and on top of me, and I began to fall asleep, I remember her gently shaking in my arms and quietly whispering to me, thinking I was dreaming, "I'm sorry, Hank. I love you, only you." I felt the moisture from her tears on my chest. It was a fucking topsy-turvy world where she cheated, knew I suspected it, and yet neither of us could talk about it. Life, right? My dreams that night were the most pleasant since I returned from my trip. I distinctly remember driving Goat's car at high speed down a long road. This is one of the most vivid dreams I have ever had. I think I understand what the dream meant and where parts of it came from, but I've never smelled smells in my dreams before, and I haven't smelled them since. But the smell of Marie's shampoo always stood out in this dream. When I felt the vibration from my smartwatch waking me up at 6 a.m., Marie wasn't in bed, but I could smell the bacon cooking. Although Marie often cooked in the mornings, she rarely cooked on the days when I was going fishing. She usually stayed in bed and slept until I left. I've even returned from short fishing trips to find her asleep in bed at 11 or so when the weather changed, and we cut the trip short. Dressed for fishing, I walked into the kitchen to see Marie finishing up a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich and a thermos of hot coffee. The beer cooler was already sitting by the garage door, and it was obvious by looking at the recycled cardboard that she had put an entire case of Bud in the cooler, probably along with a couple of sandwiches and other snacks. She tried to be the perfect wife, and yet she knew that I either knew or suspected the elephant in the room. I spent a few minutes with her, time that I would normally spend packing beer, making sandwiches, and standing in line at McDonald's for breakfast and coffee before meeting Bobby to talk to her. She was affectionate, sweet, and yet much more shy than I was used to seeing from the woman I had been with for so long. I saw the fear in her eyes for the first time, really, and could almost hear the desperation in her voice as she rushed towards me to kiss me and kept repeating, "I love you, Hank," between each kiss. For my part, I would return the kisses, although less desperately, and simply say, "I love you too." It wasn't a lie. I hated her. I used to love her. I hate what she did. I love how she is with me. I hate that she turned me into what I became. I love how she made me feel all these years that we were together. It's a two-faced dichotomy, sort of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story. I left and met Bobby at the spot on the Big Blue River where we used to park his boat. He had just finished launching his boat and was parking when I pulled up. Seeing where it was, I parked, threw my cell phone on the seat of the truck, grabbed a cooler and coffee, and walked to the boat. Fishing rods and tackle were already on board. Bobby joined me a moment later, and I gestured as if I was holding a phone and then looked at him. blushing, he turned around and walked back to his truck, returning a moment later. It was your idea to leave the phone. Are you getting old man? I gently helped him when he climbed into the boat. He looked at me with a sour expression for a moment, reached over to the cooler and grabbed the bud. Opening the can and taking a sip, he drank half the can. Too little alcohol in my blood to function on the water this early. But hey, it's like 5 o'clock. He answered, yeah, maybe in India or somewhere else. Don't you think it's a little early or late for beer? I teased, starting the engine and driving away from the shore. I thought I was the one who was drinking around the clock. I'm just getting an advantage. Gotta keep you from becoming a drunk. Didn't you get a 10-hour sobriety badge? He teased back. Yeah, but I think you have a 10-second sobriety badge. Clean and sober aren't words that will describe us by the middle of the day. Here's to you. I raised my coffee mug. Bobby grinned and finished the can. Of course, if you keep this up, we'll need a bigger boat, I joked, quoting Jaws, but for your empty cans, and we'll need more beer. Don't be afraid, more beer is here, he answered, opening the cooler. I didn't plan for us to catch many fish today. I didn't even bring bait. I chuckled at this. We trolled the river upstream to the bend at Mill Pond. Although Mill Pond was a popular fishing spot, the bend increased the current south of the pond, making fish less abundant in the area. I, for one, would like you to take some bait, preferably a goat. While life may spoil me, a good base would still be a great way to take my mind off things. And I'm sure Marie will even have it ready for me. It was strange. I realized that this was the first time I had called her Marie in front of Bobby in a long time. I knew I had to avoid calling her a bitch, a sellout, a prostitute, a cheating bitch to her face, or in front of anyone other than Bobby and maybe Evan. But I poured out my anger, my rage, my pain in front of Bobby, calling her that. I briefly wondered if my dream had anything to do with not talking bad about her before Bobby interrupted my reverie. So I've been thinking. I think I know how we can do this. Do what? Remove his weapon and all accompanying appendages from one Jonathan Williams? Well, sort of. But I was referring more to the car. It's possible to make him lose something, but it's up to him what he does too, which I can't guarantee. But the big auto theft CUDA. Yeah, I came up with that. I've been thinking about it half the night. Considering I haven't slept, it's still yesterday, so this, he pointed to his empty can of beer, isn't too early, it's just a very late Friday night. Oh, great master of the beer excuse, what is your idea? I grinned. We arranged for it to be stolen at a car show. No one will be surprised if someone on a trailer picks it up at the back of the car show. He won't be able to resist showing it, and we'll just make him bring it to the show, hire a couple of guys in jackets with a sign like CUDA Classics or something like that, and distract the goat while they load it up at the end of the show. It's always chaos in places like this, but who would steal a classic car from a car dealership and do it openly? We'll leave it in storage at some rented warehouse rented in his name and left it there for 6 months. In the short term, he will file a theft report, get insurance, and the car will be in a storage room registered in his name a month or two after that. Once he gets the insurance, we'll report it anonymously, the police will find the car, and he'll end up in jail with Bubba for insurance fraud. Okay, let me think about that for a second. No, I see too many problems for such a complex scheme. Besides, just having his name in the warehouse won't be enough. See, that's the beauty of it. You can just arrange for the locker key to hang on his key holder at home, still with a mark. So, since I know you'll be taking it apart piece by piece, here's the thing. Maybe you don't know, because you didn't know Marie well then, that Evan's cousin Darla was the girl that Goat cheated on Marie with as a freshman, and she grew up in Oklahoma. You met Darla a couple of times over the years. That Goat was involved with Marie, at least according to Darla, when they started dating. She thought she was his girlfriend, so you can imagine her surprise when Marie hit her when she found out. According to Darla, Goat lied in front of her. Her and Marie saying that it was Darla who started it and pursued him. Darla had rarely dated anyone before, and Goat was her first, so she felt betrayed when he lied about her to Marie, and she got hit for it. She blames Marie a little, but she hates Williams. And Darla, damn, this whole family, they hold grudges. You were always a friend to Evan and kind to Darla the times you met her. You like her, hell, most people like her who haven't hurt her, but she holds grudges. Okay, so you, me, Evan, and Darla all want to bring the sky down on the goat. But what does that have to do with a car? That's what I'm trying to tell you. Darla owns a couple of warehouses, or at least her husband does. Darla even manages one of them, and Darla knows where we can find a couple of guys to pick up the car. There are cameras in the warehouses, so when the police start investigating, they'll take the camera footage and see us, or someone else, loading the car. They won't see the goat. Here's the thing. Guess which warehouse is closest to the Williams house. It's not the one Darla runs, but it's the one she and her husband own. She can arrange for the cameras to be off for one weekend. It will take a few days to diagnose the faulty cable, but the next day we rent the camera, so the camera will be unplugged when we do it. It won't be there when we do it, so there is no connection between the camera fault, it and us. Okay, that solves the camera rental issue. We can hide the rest too, I guess, like the license plates on the truck carrying the car. Make sure no one is looking at the camera when they unload the car into the camera. It makes sense. Someone might even dress like the goat was dressed earlier in the day if we can figure out what he was wearing so it's more obvious. Hell, we might even have pictures of him at the show with the car so the police can see what he was wearing. I started to warm up to the idea. Now you're thinking correctly. The main points are to distract him long enough to steal the car, and how long to wait before making an anonymous call, or some other way for the car to be found if the police don't find the car themselves. Bobby seemed to have thought of most of the questions, but I saw one that stood out. There's still a question about the key. How do we get the key to his house? Okay, I'm still not sure how to do this. I think we should just put it on his keychain right before we tell the police, but I don't know how to do that yet. You'll have to figure out a few steps on your own. Stealing underwear, ? Profit, is that what you say? I'm not a dwarf stealing underwear, Bobby. I replied, referring to an old episode of South Park. Hey, there's only 3 question marks that I still see, and one little problem that only you can solve. The key situation, the distraction, and our alibis, and then the problem. What is the problem? Can you stay cool long enough to pull this off? You won't be able to do anything about Marie until he's in jail, and you really won't be able to do anything that might bring the police to your attention once his car is gone. If you're in the middle of a divorce because of him, you'll be the prime suspect. The police aren't interested in whether Marie is cheating, but they are interested in the stolen car. And as Darla's case showed, Goat will throw Marie under the bus if he thinks you're the one. Stole a car. You know, this could be ideal. Make him throw her under the bus. I could use this to push for a divorce if he goes on record saying he thought I was involved because he slept with her and I wanted revenge. That could work very well. Bobby cracked the biggest, most devious smile I've ever seen on his face. Lead a horse to water, and eventually the horse will find it and drink it. Now you see where my ultimate plan is. Wait, have you already thought of that? You bastard, why didn't you just say that from the beginning? I blurted out. Because I needed you to see for yourself that there was a way. Once you did, you know you can pull it off with Marie. When the car disappears, we'll spread rumors to the goat that you did it, or we'll spread rumors that you are involved, so that it gets to him. He will point you out to the police and end up framing Marie in front of you and everyone else before the hammer hits. Give me Bud. Time to celebrate. I smiled back at him. It was a good morning for fishing and drinking. Bobby volunteered to be the liaison between the various members, keeping everything afloat for the next week. I chose a lawyer, and she prepared the documents but did not provide dates or file them. I saw Evan once, and he looked at me and smiled. We didn't say anything. He just smiled. I knew he was thinking about getting revenge on all those bastards who sleep with other men's wives, and it was encouraging in its own way. Meanwhile, Marie was still trying to pamper me, and the bugs were not recording anything new. I was constantly looking for something on myself or in the truck that could be used to eavesdrop on me. I think it made me paranoid. If Marie really loved me and didn't want to lose me, she would try not to give me any reason to think that she didn't trust me. That didn't mean she didn't try, but if I had to guess, I'd say she was waiting for me to get over my suspicions. The handle and seat recorder always matched, and I started counting how many times the machine was used. There were a few more than I expected, but all the conversations they recorded were innocent, and both sets of recordings started with me saying the last reset date, so I knew they weren't being tampered with. For my part, I couldn't act completely normal around her, but I didn't let my anger out. The interesting thing, it seems to me, was that the car dealership fell on our heads on its own. It turns out there is a local show in 2 weeks, smaller but still quite big, benefiting Peyton Manning Children's Hospital. The GOAT signed up to show his car, which was the perfect opportunity. I was deliberately kept out of most cases. My revenge will fail if, during police interrogation, I let slip and say something that would indicate that I know too much. But it also increased my anxiety. I didn't know that dots connect and lines intersect, or vice versa. I hope it's the other way around. All this happened while I still had to tolerate Marie and somehow maintain a semblance of normalcy around her. She could see right through it, I know, but since she didn't know that I knew and couldn't admit what she had done, she didn't know whether it was just dark thoughts and suspicions or concrete evidence. I decided one thing apart from Bobby, however. I was going to keep the recorders and cameras for a couple more weeks after the show. Oh, I didn't think they'd catch anything now, but deleting them too suddenly after she found out I was looking would probably be a big sign that I already have her own incriminating voice talking about her novel. While they were established, she could think that these were just suspicions. The night before the car show, Evan just coincidentally showed up at the same time as Bobby, and I coincidentally showed up a few minutes later. What a coincidence, right? Bobby and I didn't talk about what was going on around our phones or other places where there might be bugs, so we were only talking about normal things lately, but I knew I needed to get information. Hank, you're supposed to be the one who starts this. You're supposed to be the distraction. Evan and his friend, who you won't be meeting, will be the ones who take the car on the trailer. I'll be the GOAT in the video at the warehouse. I need something from you, however. I need you to send me a photo of him in the car. I have a burner phone. He handed it to me, with one number set to send to my other number. I will match his clothes as best I can, and I'll add sunglasses and a Colt's cap. With video quality, that'll be enough. We need you to remain visible and noticeable. The only photo you'll take with this phone is of him at the gas station on the way home, okay? But I need you to take a lot of photos throughout the day, talk to people, get business cards, even give out your number to some of the Corvette guys. Make sure people see you and remember you. Take a photo with that phone as early as possible. It may take a while to find clothes. Okay, got it. But what about a distraction? What should I do about that? You might have to improvise a little. There should be something to distract him for 10 minutes or so. Maybe have an award show for the top 1960s cars from each manufacturer. The Barracuda may not be 1970, but probably the best Mopar of the 1960s. Give $100 for each best car from Chevy, Ford, Dodge for the 1960s, which you can write off on your taxes, man. Have an awards ceremony there and hold an awards ceremony in, let's say 1730, but you have to be there to collect the prize. Improvise, damn. You just gave me the whole script. That's the plan. I'll even make the Mopar last so I can keep it in the main tent longer. If I do this right and talk about the great muscle cars of the 1960s for a minute, and then ask every guy to tell you why his car was the king of the 60s, I can stretch it out for half an hour. See, this is what I meant by improvisation. Evan laughed. Williams would probably drag it out for half an hour himself, not to mention the Corvette or Mustang guys. But if you don't include the GOAT, you're going to piss someone off. You said Chevy, Ford, Dodge. You should include Pontiac for the GTO. And Firebirds. Okay, now that's $400. Why not make $500 and have a vote among the spectators in the tent at the time to decide who gets the extra 100? Although I feel bad about giving $100 to the goat for having my wife. It's money well spent when he's in a cell with Bubba, and you'll have a rock-solid alibi. Bobby was right, of course. If this incriminates Williams, it will be worth it. The next day was a beautiful and clear morning, with blue skies, moderate temperatures, and a bright and cheerful sun. I swear I thought I heard robins chirping. The day seemed so bright and beautiful. Well, it seemed that way to me because I knew that today was the day that Jonathan Goat Williams would begin the rest of his life without his precious barracuda. It was just a glorious day. I refused to believe the forecast on the radio as I drove to the car show. Cloudy with a 30% chance of precipitation, temperatures in the low 50s. As someone once said, I reject this reality and replace it with my own. After paying the fee, I headed closer to where Williams was preparing a presentation around his car. I quickly took a photo of him and the car as I walked by and sent a text to Bobby. A moment later, I received the response, "Got it. LMK4 show time," which I translated as, "Let me know the show time so we could pick up the car then." After that, I went to the main admin tent. "Hey guys, my name is Hank Preston and I have a proposal. I'd like to give out a small prize later today to the best cars of the 1960s from Chevy, Ford, Pontiac, and Chrysler Plymouth. This will add a little extra interest. I'm willing to donate $100 for each winner and then vote on the best of the four for an additional $100. And all I ask is that you consider this as a charity, as it is something to increase the excitement level. I have the money right here to clean new bills," I said, holding out hundreds. "I think we can do this. What time do you want it to take place, and how will we judge it?" asked one of the leading volunteers. "Give people tickets, have them put them in a bucket or hat near their favorite. The top vote getters in each category win, then vote for the final winner later. Should be easy enough," I answered. "Tim, take this roll of tickets to the entrance. Have them hand out tickets to everyone who comes and explain what they are for. Maggie, why don't you go and tell each of the possible participants why they should hold on to these tickets? We'll hold counting and voting at, say, 5 p.m. "Sounds good. Just need a receipt for taxes." I smiled. All according to plan. After I left the tent, I sent 5 p.m. to the preset number. Within a moment, I got the okay. Throw the phone away at the gas station on the way home. Since it was early, I walked through the cars and spent a long time admiring the metallic blue 963 split rear window Stingray and the yellow 454 powered 1967 Stingray convertible. I had a hard time deciding which one was more deserving. I took photos with my own cell phone, grabbed business cards, and pondered the "For Sale" sign on a silver fuel-injected 1965 Stingray. The last year fuel injection was available on a Corvette until 1982. This really tempted me. There weren't many other Corvettes there, only 5 in the category, but still seeing some of the ones I've dreamed about since I was a kid was amazing. Among other Chevys, I was surprised by how good the 1962 Impala was. It would definitely have won without the 3 vets I mentioned, and would still be in contention regardless. I found a car for Bobby too, a green 1969 Mustang Mach 1 Fastback. It was even for sale, but when I saw the asking price, I decided not to tell Bobby about it. He would never have lived to drive it because Sue would have killed him for such a waste. Better to leave it alone and let someone else buy that pony. Hey, if I can't have a Fuelie, he can't have a Mach 1, okay. There were also a decent number of mid-60s Mustangs, even one 1964 12 convertible that was definitely interesting, but the Mach 1 was the star. Perhaps if there was a Shelby or a Eleanor, but there wasn't. Among the other Fords, only one Galaxy 500 really stood out. I didn't just wander around all day. I tried to be memorable, make new friends, and talk about my favorites in the 4 categories with other visitors. It was fun when I finally found both a blue 1967 Firebird and a red 1968 GTO among Pontiacs that were truly great. I whispered to the old man with goat that he should probably play some Beach Boys on his phone as background music. If he makes a small playlist, he might play their version of Little GTO as background music. He liked the idea. When I passed by later, I heard the end of the loop he made. I loved it and stayed long enough to hear the opening with Little Old Lady from Pasadena. It was especially funny when an elderly couple walked by when it started. She started laughing and asked if she could take the goat while she went to church. I mentioned to her that the Barracuda might be worth a look since it's a Mopar, closer to a Superstock Dodge. It was obvious that either the Firebird or the goat would win the Pontiac group. The Barracuda had little competition, which was a problem. I needed the goat to stay in the tent as long as possible. There was a 1968 Dodge Super B avocado green with a big 426 Hemi. It was the rarest example of the car at the show, without a doubt, and the pride of its owner. It only had one major flaw, at least as a show car. Some owner along the way removed the original radio and added a new one, along with a now ancient 8-track player that was not in the car. This damaged the dash, and the owner has yet to get the dash and carpet repaired. It also didn't have the original wheels, instead having 5-spoke wheels with spinner hubcaps that looked suspiciously like mid-60s Stingray wheels. They looked good, I suppose, but they distracted from the car. I mentioned this to several people and probably ruined a potential friendship when the owner heard me. I really liked Super B, but Barracuda should have won. I started getting nervous around 4 p.m. I knew that no crime had yet been committed, but in less than 2 hours I would be an accomplice before and after the fact of the great auto theft, even if I was not guilty myself. I remembered Bobby and how he said he would help me hide the bodies, and I remembered Evan and how upset he was about his wife cheating on him, and how much pain and anger Marie cheating on him brought me. I also knew that at the moment I could pretend nothing happened with Marie and just move forward, lying to myself and others, but if we were to get through this, I needed Williams to suspect me, regardless of my alibi. I needed him to get to the point where he would betray Marie to me and everyone else. And then the time came. I was nervous, but calmed down when I saw Jonathan Kozel enter the tent. The die is cast, and whatever happens, happens. I sent one last quick message, go, and that was it. Even when I had to become less calm, I felt a warm sense of relaxation. The Super B owner frowned when he saw me with the judges. I also saw the owners of 3 top-of-the-line vets, the 6412 Stang and Mach-I owners, the Impala owner, the Firebird and Goat owners, and I saw him. He saw me at that moment, perhaps realizing for the first time that I was funding a small reward. After a moment he grinned, and at that moment I wished for Super B to defeat him. I talked a bit, talking about how the 1960s was a great decade in automotive history and how American cars ruled the road. I then invited each of the holders who had a ticket to bring them to be counted, with a small line in front of each of the people the show organizers had chosen to count the tickets. I stretched it out a bit by asking each person, as they brought in their tickets, to say a few words about their car. There was a strange difference in the way they talked about their cars. Some guys started quoting chapter and verse about the car, the driver, who designed it, how many of them were made. Some talked not so much about the car in general, but about their specific car, why it was special. And a few people didn't talk so much about the car as they did about memories associated with the car. Many of them were cars of family or friends, not collected from strangers, but had personal meaning to the owner. I was impressed by the guy with the 1962 Impala who mentioned that his father asked his mother to get married in the car, and that they used it for their wedding, honeymoon, and picking up the kids from the hospital. His father drove it one last time to his mother's funeral and handed it over to him a week later. This brought tears to the eyes of some people in the crowd. Williams followed a minute later. He could talk about growing up seeing the car, unused, his grandfather's dream, while his grandfather languished after a stroke. He could tell you what made the car special in other ways, why it was unique, rare, or desirable. He could talk about restoration, but he didn't. He talked, and I quote, about how women seem to love that car. There's something about seeing it and hearing the song Barracuda by Fleetwood Mac and they just melt. There's nothing better for a bachelor than a hot car. It came out of the blue, and someone behind him shouted, "It's Hart, you idiot, not Fleetwood Mac, and it has nothing to do with the car." I think this got more laughter than his speech got applause. Marie cheated on me with this piece of crap. Seriously? When the voting ended, it was clear that people began to become interested in some of the cars. And then they gave me the results to announce. I didn't expect this, but it was fun to give each winner a small certificate printed by the show organizers, a small blue ribbon, and a crisp 100. The first car to be named was the Mach-I. They didn't give me the numbers, but it was clear that the Mach-I dominated the Ford field. I was surprised when the Impala beat two top-of-the-line 63 and 67 vets, but it was also obvious that the owner had been telling his story all day. I think it got a lot of votes from women and some men because the car looked so good and it had a beautiful story. The GTO won among Pontiacs, but it was clear that it was close. People in the tent were arguing who would win, and then it was Mopar's turn. Someone behind me shouted that there should be one award for the Dodge and one for the Plymouth. Since I crashed the Pontiac from the Chevy, he was clearly biased as he wore a t-shirt that said, "It's a Hemi." I deflected and simply responded that I didn't have endless money and I had to draw the line somewhere. It was already about 5:30 p.m., so I knew I didn't need to keep Williams in the tent and away from the Cuda any longer. And then it happened. The Super B won among Mopars. We weren't done in the tent yet, but there was no way I could hold Williams off any longer. He was free to quit, or free to be a good sport and see who won the final prize, best of the 60s. It would still be another ribbon and another certificate, plus the last 100, but it would still be fun. And Williams left. I had to be there to vote among the remaining spectators, of whom there were about 70 people, most of whom had been there from the beginning. I stretched it out even as I suddenly started sweating from the situation. 5 minutes to his car, 5 minutes to figure out what happened, then a couple more. My world could have changed a lot in the next 15 minutes, but I was in front of everyone in that tent the whole time. My alibi was solid, but it wouldn't stand up to a charge of conspiracy to steal. I knew I had to stick together to be shocked by the theft like everyone else. So I played my part. I raised my hand to each of the 4 winners, first the GTO, which received a good ovation. I then switched to the Mach-I, which got a little more. I had my hand on Super B, which got a good response, but was clearly third to the first 2. And then I did it with the Impala. Personally, I thought the Impala was nice, but not a true muscle car. My vote would go to the 63 split rear window coupe, which I would say was best in show. But my voice didn't matter. The crowd roared and cheered over the Impala, loud and strong, and as soon as it did, the owner of the Mach-I turned around and shook the owner's hand. It was obvious who won. I smiled from ear to ear as I shook his hand and presented him with his prizes. One of the other exhibitors also brought a jar of liquid glass car wax and handed it to him. It was clear that he was touched. He knew the car was good, but the story made it the best of show and a crowd favorite. He had just stepped up to the microphone to say how happy he was when Williams burst in shouting that his car had been stolen. I felt sorry for this Impala owner, Thomas Warner. He was enjoying his moment until it happened, but the commotion as people started leaving was a sight to behold. It wasn't until he was leaving that he turned to me and said, "Hank, he's really an asshole, isn't he? My wife is going to love that $200. Thanks." He winked at me and left. Although he had heard my name mentioned, we had barely spoken before, so I was surprised that he called me Hank, or that he knew my impression and opinion of Williams. I joined the crowd heading towards where the Cuda was. I made sure that I walked all over the area looking for things, and I made sure that many other people did the same. I think I've seen too many crime shows and wanted to make sure the crime scene was as contaminated as possible with strangers and things. I even accidentally knocked over a 10-year-old boy's hand, causing him to spill popcorn in the area. Apologetically, I made sure I stepped on the only tire track I could see, destroying the evidence. I gave him enough money so he could buy a replacement box since it was my fault. It was only when the police arrived that Williams looked in my direction. The crowd had by then decreased by about half. I heard what caused it. It was one of the policemen. Do you know anyone who would like to harm you or steal your car? Do you have any enemies? That was the moment when the goat looked at me. I have one person I can think of. We need to discuss this in private. That's all he said, and then they walked away a little, and I couldn't hear them. He gestured in my direction, and the policeman glanced at me. The old adage that a criminal always returns to the scene of the crime ran through my head for a moment as the policeman looked me over. At some point, Kozel looked in my direction again and pointed his finger. I grinned at him and then turned away. After half an hour or so I left, stopping only to use a chamois pad to wipe down the phone to erase all the data after deleting it. I threw it out the window into a grassy area next to the road, a few miles away, near a place where I knew teenagers hung out. Although it was possible that the police would obtain it, I doubted it, and the incriminating material was removed anyway. I threw it out there because it seemed less likely than throwing it away at a gas station where they might get security footage. I was nervous, but I didn't call or talk to Bobby or Evan that night. I had something planned with Bobby the next day, and I thought we could talk then. I told Marie to gauge her reaction about the theft. Hey, something weird happened at the show today. One of the cars got stolen. Oh, what car? And was it found? Marie asked, not really caring, except that it was something interesting that happened to me that I was telling. She was still tiptoeing around me, avoiding the elephant in the room. It was Jonathan Williams' Barracuda from 1969. He looked like a wild man when the police arrived, and I don't know why, but he kept looking at me. I wonder why. That was her only comment. So where are you taking me for dinner tonight? She quickly changed the topic. I feel like something primal today. I feel like a shark eating and destroying all the little annoying things around me. Okay, maybe not a shark, but red lobster, and you're eating a huge tray of shrimp. Got it. It was only when I went to wash myself that I realized she might have made a pun. I was a barracuda, and I had just absorbed the Williams goat trophy. He was a shrimp. At least I hope that's what she meant and not something else. Red Lobster was good, and again, Marie wore me out that night. I think somewhere in all this, Marie was replaced with a sex star who shoots a full-fledged film every day. She was so actively pursuing me. The next day, early in the morning, at 8 a.m., the police arrived. I was already on my feet, but Marie was still sleeping upstairs. I was surprised, of course, but also nervous. In my mind, there was only one reason why the police would question me. They found out what we did. You can imagine how nervous I was, but I tried not to show it. Mr. Preston, can we give you a few minutes of your time? Asked one of the policemen, Lawrence, using his badge. We have a few questions about the theft of Jonathan Williams' brown 1969 Plymouth Barracuda at the car show yesterday. We understand you were there and wanted to ask you a few questions. Honestly, for some reason, Mr. Williams believes that you may be involved. We do not accept that you are involved, but Mr. Bernings Williams has given us a motive. However, we know where you were at the time of the car theft. You have at least 30 people who have already said that you were at the Best Cars of the 1960s awards ceremony and actually hosted it. Mr. Kernes Williams himself admits that you were there, but insists that you know something. What motive could I have? I certainly don't like Jonathan, but I have no reason to hate him. Heck, he used to date my wife before I really got to know her. Their breakup was because he couldn't control himself with other girls, which ultimately led to us ending up together. He may be a bit of a jerk, but I should be grateful. And you are grateful, Mr. Preston. What do you have in mind? I can't discuss this right now. Sounds weird. Anyway, the last time I saw Jonathan's car was around 4 or so. Jonathan came into the tent around 4:50, maybe 5. And yes, I can give you the photos I took. I went to my computer and connected my phone to it to download the photos. I then copied them onto a small, inexpensive flash drive and returned to the officers, who were quietly inspecting everything in the room. It's hard when the cops start crying for no apparent reason. Here are the photographs, Officer Lawrence. I'd like to have the flash drive back when you're done. I'm wondering why, other than the photos, you're here. Are you saying Jonathan thinks I did it? At that moment, I heard a slight sigh and looked up to see Marie. I knew I could make it so that the police presence in the room was the reason Marie sighed. Honey, this is Officers Lawrence and Hinton. They wanted the photos I took yesterday of the crowds and cars of the various contestants. About. Mrs. Preston, can I talk to you for a minute? Hinton intervened. Sure. What do you need? Alone? She looked confused and pale as she led him into the kitchen. What is it? I asked Lawrence. Just need to confirm something Mr. Buzz Williams said. Now, can you tell me where you went after Mr. Gita Williams' car was stolen? I laughed. Yes, I stayed there for a bit and then went home. Marie, my wife, wanted to eat out, so we went to Red Lobster and then returned home. Why? You make me think I have something to worry about. No, it's not like that. He tried to calm my fears, but I knew more than he did about what was happening. He and his partner were trying to find out from my so-called loving wife if the motivation this bastard gave them was real. In any case, the conversation ended there. A few minutes later, Marie and Hinton returned to the room. Hinton nodded to Lawrence, and they stood up to leave. Thank you for your help, Mr. Preston. If you remember anything that might be helpful, here's my business card, he said, handing me a card with his contact information on it, and then they left. What did they want to talk to you about? I asked Marie. She played a little when I asked, but then said, he just wanted to talk about Jonathan and our old relationship when we were dating, and whether you and Jonathan get along. Not too much. He's quite a scoundrel, I replied. He's not that bad, but he's not you, that's for sure. I love you, Hank. I don't know, he was pretty bad to people on the show yesterday, and he was a bad player, plus he actually called his barracuda a girl magnet. Sounds like a real bastard to me. Yeah, I guess it really sounds like him being a bastard, but he's not important. After all, he is not my husband, the man I love. He's just some guy, some bastard, that I dated once. I love you, Hank. I saw that she was trying to get me to say this to calm her down. I love you too, Marie. I felt pain while saying this. I knew it was a lie. I knew it was true, and I didn't want to say it, but it wasn't time to stop saying it yet. Bobby called later that day and canceled the meeting. We talked on the phone, mostly about minor things like fishing. I wanted to get his opinion on how everything went, but I didn't dare. Life went on. A few days later, I met Bobby at DQ. We sat and ate our desserts, talking about nothing. We briefly touched on the subject of the car being stolen since it was now a topic of discussion in our circle, but we were only asking why, with so many other worthy cars on the show, someone would steal this one. We knew, of course, but our conversation did not reflect this, since we wanted to be heard. We speculated about why someone might have stolen this particular car, and we both briefly mentioned that Williams might be responsible and that it was an insurance scam. I don't know if the police overheard this conversation or knew about it directly, although we were talking loud enough that a couple of other people walking by must have heard. We hoped the word would get around. 10 days after the theft, he finally attacked me. In one respect, I was surprised that he had not done this sooner. He wanted my woman and thought I had stolen his most precious possession. He attacked me in the parking lot of my work on Tuesday night, just as 5 other people I worked with were leaving. I saw his regular car at the end of the parking lot, so it wasn't a complete surprise that he was there, but I let it seem like a surprise. The punch to the gut hurt like hell. It didn't help that he then slammed my head into the roof of my car. Where's my car, bastard? I will beat you until you tell me where she is. You couldn't stand me sleeping with Marie, right? She should have been mine from the start. You're worthless, a piece of shit. Where the hell is my car? I was a little taken aback, but I knew it was going to happen. My work colleagues didn't know. It took them a while to get to me. I blacked out because the next image I saw was the medics working on me. I turned my head and saw him lying 5 feet away from me, with his hands cuffed behind his back. That bastard stole my car. He stole it. This jerk can't take care of his wife and is angry at me for helping her. You have to beat him out of where he hid my car, he shouted. I heard my boss talking to some of my colleagues in the background. They discussed my family situation and wondered if I was some kind of car thief. I decided to play on this so that I would have enough witnesses to his words. I tried to say something. Did Marie cheat on me? With you? You mother bastard. I'll kill you. I felt a prick in my arm as the medic inserted the Roman 4. A moment later, I felt a coldness in my hand, and after a couple of ragged, seething breaths after that, I didn't remember anything else. I woke up in what had become a familiar place since Marie betrayed me, the emergency room. However, I woke up briefly, only to hear the words, "He has a punctured lung," and I had difficulty breathing, and it felt like someone was strangling me and sitting on my chest at the same time. Then nothing again. I woke up again on Saturday, exactly 2 weeks after the theft. Of course, I didn't know it was Saturday. My last conscious thoughts were on Tuesday when the bastard attacked me. I wondered how he could put me down with one blow. I expected something, although perhaps not this. It was like being hit with a lead pipe. As it turns out, it wasn't exactly a metaphor. He hit me with a jack from his car. Goodbye, Boston Marathon. Lucky me, this was never on my bucket list. When I opened my eyes, I saw that I was in an isolated room, white, brightly lit. A white board on the wall next to the cabinet under the TV said, Dr. Wisnowski and Nurse Maggie next to one of those, "How are you feeling?" charts. I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel the heat. I didn't feel cold. I couldn't feel my fingers, my arms, my legs, my toes. The only thing I felt was a sore throat because of the tube that was there. I forced my hand to move, and as I did, I heard a loud, shrill alarm. A moment later, a beautiful, sexy young woman with one of the most magnificent asses I had ever seen entered the room. I suddenly started fantasizing about all these nurse stories. Mr. Preston, please don't move. You need to remain calm. You are in the hospital. You were attacked and required immediate surgery. Your wife and some of your family have been here most of the time, and I will let them in after the doctor comes. Blink twice if you understand. I blinked twice, and she told me that I would have to leave the tube in my throat a little longer. I think I blacked out again because I didn't see the doctor come in, but his voice brought me out of it. Mr. Preston, hello, I'm Dr. Wisnowski. I am the doctor in charge of your treatment and would like to talk to you for a moment. I need you to concentrate and not try to move or speak, but you can blink your eyes, once for no, twice for yes, okay? I blinked twice. You were attacked last Tuesday. Your attacker used a metal rod, and when he did, he broke 2 of your ribs. One of them punctured your lung. He broke another rib a moment later, and your right arm. I want you to move your fingers, just the fingers of your left hand, and I did. Fine. Now move the fingers, and only the fingers of your right hand. Fine. He pulled back the sheet covering my legs. I want you to wiggle your toes, but gently on your left foot, then on your right. Fine. We were worried there might be spinal damage, but it doesn't appear to be there. You are a very lucky person. You should be out of here in 4 days or so and fully recovered in a month or so. I didn't feel lucky. After he looked at some numbers on the graph and then at the readings on the sound machines, he told the nurse that he wanted to increase the oxygen flow through the nasal cannula, or whatever the thing is called that they put on the ears and pass under the nose. He also told her that she could remove the endotracheal tube or something like that, and that I was only allowed liquids, strictly under supervision. Only ice for the first 2 hours, then broth and jelly. Oh, what a feast! Broth and jelly. After she took out the pipe, she placed a small cup of ice crumbs on a tray in front of me. But she didn't give them to me, and I quickly realized that I couldn't move my left arm because it was secured to the bed rail, and I couldn't move my right because it seemed to be in an inflatable cast and sling. Once the dryness and sore throat began to reach my brain, I decided that Maggie was a closet sadist. Luckily, Marie came in a few minutes later. She seemed ready to jump on me on the bed when a hand stopped her and pulled her back. She looked terrible. No makeup, exhausted, unkempt, in need of a shower, and in complete despair. I don't know where I had the strength to say this. Every word took away a part of my soul and vitality. You, and that has to be the longest you I've ever said. Changed. Her eyes began to water before I could continue. To me, she looked devastated that I said that. Every word required effort. Nim. She looked devastated. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears streaming down her face as she hurried out of the room. My next conscious memory was of hearing crying and then Bobby's deep voice. I heard soft words being spoken in the background, but at first I couldn't make out anything. Then I began to understand. Bobby spoke quietly. You have to leave now before he wakes up again. More crying. But I love him. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I could not understand whose voice it was. It was too distorted by sobs to understand anything more than words, and even then with difficulty. You can talk to him later, Marie, but you need to go away, rest, clean up, and get ready. He remembers what William said. He knows, Marie, and your presence now can only make things worse. I'll call you if he asks you. I let myself fall back into darkness as I heard another voice say something. When I woke up again, I croaked, ice. I'm not sure how anyone understood me, but a moment later I felt a spoonful of wonderfully cold ice against my lips. I sucked on the ice and let it moisten and soothe my dry and sore throat. A moment later another spoonful followed, and I opened my eyes to see my brother's worried face. Welcome back to the world of the living. You gave us quite a scare, little brother. Mike tried to smile weakly. Bobby leaned over. The keys are there. It'll all come out soon, Hank. The bastard who did this to you will pay, and pay in full. And then I'll send his cellmate cigarettes with a note saying, make him your bitch. Every month he's in prison. He is currently being held in prison, but it looks like he will get 5-7 years for assault alone. Insurance fraud would be the icing on the cake. 2. Graves. Bobby, I croaked slowly. Bobby understood what I was asking. The old saying about revenge and digging 2 graves. This and your divorce from Marie will be the only graves for you, Hank. But I'm going to make sure he goes through hell for what he did to you in the parking lot. I was able to get more ice, a small sip of water, and even some cold broth. Of course, Bobby ate the jelly. When I could speak well enough, we finally talked about something important. How is she holding up, Bobby? She's devastated, of course. After all, it's all her fault, right? For all her faults, I think she really loves you. Don't know why, though. I saw you naked, and it's definitely not because of this, he joked. It hurt when I laughed with him at his joke. I didn't have the strength to answer that his Sue thought I was all right there. We both knew we were making fun of each other, but brothers are forever, you know. So, did you put the key back? Have you already reported him? I asked. The key is in his car, in the coin holder. He left the car unlocked when he attacked you, and it wasn't towed away for 2 days. The car somehow became locked when the police towed it away. I wonder when this happened, huh? The announcement will be made. Tomorrow morning. The attack was covered in the newspapers and is gaining momentum. The news of him screaming about his stolen car came out this morning, so it'll be in the papers tomorrow. This means Tom will report this after the newspaper comes out. Volume, who is Tom? I asked, puzzled. Tom Warner, Darla's husband. Heck, you were photographed presenting him with an award at a car show. Impala? Did he win best in show or something? Is Thomas Warner Darla's husband? How is it? No, I don't want to know. The less I know, the better. He won fair and square, Hank, and it's just a lucky coincidence that he was able to prove that you were there, and he'll be the one who nails that bastard to the cross when they find Cuda. I need to start the divorce again, Bobby. Now that it's public, we can move forward. No revenge for Marie, Hank. I heard in his voice that Bobby thought that divorce was sufficient revenge. No, I think I've become softer. I still love that stupid bitch. And yes, she probably loves me too. I barely heard Bobby whisper, she does, before I continued. But marriage is also about trust and fidelity. She hurt me and broke that trust. She wasn't faithful. I can't stay married to her. I started to cry a little. It was painful, I swear. Okay, bro, I'll bring your shark on Monday. You already hired that female lawyer, right? Yes. The conversation practically ended there, and after a while Bobby left me at the mercy of the Marquise de Sade, Maggie's nurse. God, she was an evil harpy tormenting me for no reason. The stories about capricious nurses are not true, at least not when it comes to Maggie. The next day, late in the evening, the police visited me again in the hospital. It was the same couple, but this time there was something different in their gaze, a thought that was not there last time. Mr. Belzertrius Preston, I want to apologize to you. Last time we spoke, you were an unlikely suspect in a car theft, Officer Lawrence began. I simply nodded for him to continue. This morning, a 1969 Plymouth Barracuda was found after a newspaper article about your attack. The warehouse owner realized that the car was in his warehouse, and we found footage that showed it had been stolen by the owner himself, probably for insurance purposes. This bastard stole his own car? Then why did he attack me? I asked. If I didn't seem confident enough in my questions, I knew it would be chalked up to pain and injury. Mr. Bowles-Williams had a relationship with your wife. We believe he was trying to frame you for theft so he would have a better chance of deepening the relationship. His attack on you was partly out of jealousy and partly to draw more attention to you. Unfortunately for him, we found the key to the warehouse in his car, and there is video footage of him putting the car in the warehouse. So it's true. Marie cheated on me with him. Did she know he was going to attack me? Yes, she had an affair with him, but we don't think she knew about his intention to attack you. The attack actually backfired on him because news of it was what prompted the warehouse owner, Thomas Warner, who, by the way, confirmed your alibi at the time of the theft, to tell the police the location of the car when he learned it had been reported stolen. So this is insurance fraud and setting me up? Is that what he was trying to do besides physically harm me? We think so. The prosecutor charges him with assault with a weapon, simple assault, insurance fraud, perjury, and every other charge that might stick. I'm not sure how successful this will be, he chuckled, especially since most criminals lie to the police, but they throw everything they can at him. He faces a minimum of 8 years, and they are trying to add more every day. Because he poses a clear danger to you and a possible flight risk, he was denied bail on the assault charge. Additional charges will only make this easier. We talked for a few more minutes, and then they left. A few hours later, Marie arrived. She looked scared and like she was crying. I looked at her and felt angry. I could give vent to my pain now, I could express my suffering. Yet I saw pain in her eyes, which surprised me at first. How can she feel pain because of my pain, my anger? In the end, I realized that she feels pain because she knows that she caused it. Her actions hurt me, destroyed us, Hank and Marie, the golden couple who will always be together, always in love, and who have been so in sync for a long time. Bobby asked me to give you a seat before I come to talk to you. I'm sorry, Hank. I don't know why I did it. It's not your fault, and I would never have believed that he could hurt you like that or try to put you in jail. I'm sorry. What can I say? The pain he caused me is nothing compared to the pain you caused me, Marie. It wasn't enough. I gave you my heart, my soul, and it wasn't enough. I gave you my love, my faith, my trust, my loyalty, and that wasn't enough. You killed me, Marie. You took one of the two things I had unshakable faith in and destroyed it. The only thing you could do to hurt me more is if it was Bobby. I need you to leave now, Marie. I love you too much to look at you knowing what you did to me. I love you too, Hank. I know you don't believe it, but it's true. I love you with all my heart and all my soul. I will do whatever you ask. I created this hell into which I brought you and myself, and I will accept that only you can get us out of it. She left with a look of devastation on her face. And I still love you, Marie, I whispered as she walked away, tears streaming down my face again. As Scarlett O'Hara said in Gone with the Wind, tomorrow is a new day. The next day was indeed a new day. My new lawyers came to me. Yes, lawyers, plural. A female men's lawyer, Tamara Hughes, and another man she introduced as a civil lawyer, Mike Bass, with whom she worked. She was talking and immediately wanted to attack Marie. I had originally wanted this too, but Marie's brief appearance the day before had softened this, and together with my previous conversation with Bobby, had ensured a calmer approach. I decided I just wanted an easy divorce, except she gets the house and I get most of our savings. I didn't want the house, not after it had been desecrated, but I couldn't find it in me to hurt her in revenge. I've loved her too much, for too long, to want to hurt her more than I need to. I think my anger and resentment have dissipated. Anger, hatred. It takes strength to keep that heat and fire going, and I just didn't have the strength to continue it. My lawyer was a little disappointed that I wanted to be fair to her. I got the impression that some woman had hurt someone she loved badly, and she wanted other women to suffer when they hurt an innocent man. But I think she understood too. And then her smile widened when Jonathan Williams was finally mentioned in the conversation. This time Bass spoke. We need to sue him for the injuries he caused. In fact, we must act quickly to freeze his assets before the trial begins, which will complicate his defense. As a conservative estimate, I think we could get between $300,000 and $500,000 for your pain and suffering, the interference in your marriage, the attempt to frame you for stealing his car, and the slander and humiliation you suffered at work. If we find the right judge, the amount could be higher. And his car, too. I want his car. He took away the most precious thing I had, my wife, so I want him. And that's when Miss Hughes laughed. Oh yes, I like this idea. If I can't attack my wife, then at least I'll help you crucify him. Marie was told that she should come to Miss Hughes in a few days to sign the papers. Bobby went to my place and then said that she burst into tears and cried for 10 minutes before taking the pen. When she tried to sign, her tears soaked the papers so much that they had to be retyped so she could sign them. It was hard to hear. But Marie did not dispute anything, did not demand anything, did not ask for anything. She trusted me enough to sign the papers. 90 days after signing, we will be single again. It was depressing. 19 days after the attack, the hospital finally transferred me to a rehabilitation center where I would spend the next few weeks. On the day I arrived there, a flower arrangement arrived with 1 blue hyacinth and 1 daffodil. There was no postcard, and in fact there never was a postcard, since identical compositions arrived every 3 days after that. I don't know what the symbolism meant, and I can't guarantee I know who sent them, although I suspect it was Marie. After rehab, I went to live with Bobby and Sue until I fully recovered and found a new place to live. Bobby, Evan, and a few of my friends moved my stuff from my house to either Bobby's or a storage unit. The trial proceeded quickly. I was surprised since I had only been home from rehab for 2 weeks when the court date was set. When Sue told me that Bass had left instructions on what to wear, when to be there, etc., I started to get nervous. I did not tell either Miss Hughes or Mr. Bass that I was, in fact, involved, at least as an accomplice prior to the theft of the car. I also knew that I didn't want to lie under oath, so I was very careful about what I signed in the documents. I didn't want to be in William's shoes on the other side of the courtroom. I shouldn't have been so afraid. I was never called to testify. They called in others because they thought I was too injured for reliable testimony. I expected William's lawyer to subpoena me, but he didn't. This meant I didn't have to lie under oath or say, I don't remember. Of course, it really didn't matter much. The prosecutor denied William's bail due to his danger to me. Normally, this would mean that the lawyer would arrange a claim for the defendant, but this one didn't do that. So Williams had to sit in the courtroom wearing bright orange prison clothes. I later learned that the reason the lawyer made poor decisions was because he was the cheapest Williams could find. He thought that the whole case would be dropped or would be done cheaply so that he could save money for a good defense attorney. Big mistake. The entire process took 2 days, much longer than I expected, because Bass insisted on putting a lot of additional evidence on the record. I didn't understand why he wasted the court's time calling so many of my work colleagues from the scene of the attack, or why so many people from the car show were called, at least not completely. It was a clever ploy by my lawyers against Williams. They brought much important evidence into the official record where it could be used by the prosecutor to assist in the prosecution. The court reached a verdict quickly, and in the end, it was a stunning victory for me, more than I asked for. It didn't hurt that Williams was caught trying to hide assets. I received, after subtracting the lawyer's share, $483,000 after taxes, and a brown 1969 Plymouth Barracuda. The car brought me more joy than the money, although the money was good and would have been enough to buy several similar cars, including a Mach 1 and a '63 Vet with a split rear window. I had almost as much fun 8 months later when the verdict on the criminal charges was announced. The bastard got 11 years, much more than the 6-7 Bobby was talking about. I decided to go to the final divorce hearing. By that time, I was already walking with a stick and could drive a car. I rode the Cuda that day simply because I wanted to lift my spirits from being depressed about the breakup of my marriage. I never thought it was possible that Marie and I wouldn't be together forever, not until the butter and pecan incident. But here I am. I walked into the courtroom with a Miss Hughes. She was attractive, probably of average height, with small breasts, but a petite butt like Jennifer Lopez. Cute face, medium hair. Yes, I examined her a little. I am a man. This is what we do. But she was not the one my heart desired. I looked across the courtroom and saw Marie. She was wearing a light blue dress, light brown stockings or pantyhose, and her black low-heel shoes. She looked as beautiful as always to me. Oh, she might not have been a Hollywood beauty. She might not be Marilyn Monroe, but she could very well be the sexy Mary Ann of Gilligan's Island. The only flaws in her beauty were her drooping shoulders that no longer jutted her chest proudly forward, the lines of worry and sadness on her face, and her dull eyes that no longer sparkled brightly when she looked at me before. I didn't look at my Marie. This woman no longer existed. I was looking at another woman who didn't have the fire I loved. I looked at a woman in mourning. The judge put the court in order and began to consider our case. Tamara said a few words, few of which I heard. Marie's lawyer said a few words, also few of which I heard, and then said that Marie wanted to say something to me and the court. I was surprised by this. She stood up and looked at the judge. She smiled faintly and then turned and looked at me. Turning back to the judge, she began. Your Honor, I was the happiest woman in the world. I had a man who loved me and whom I loved. I had dreams of how we would start our family soon. I dreamed about our children and the love we would have. And then I destroyed those dreams. I made a mistake and, in a moment of weakness, betrayed my husband to remind myself of the what-ifs from the past. Sometimes the past must remain the past. It was my fault, not my husband's. I had a brief affair with an ex-boyfriend, and something changed, almost instantly, between my husband and me. I don't know, even now, why he realized something was wrong, but he did. In the end, it doesn't matter. I messed up something wrong, and this is my biggest shame and biggest regret. She looked at me then, turning away from the judge. Hank, I want you to know that I will never forgive myself for betraying you. I was weak, I was stupid, and I was wrong. I can't fix this, and I know you can never fully forgive me for what I did. I don't want you to let me go, but I understand that you need to be free to heal and recover. I will give you whatever you ask freely, just as I once gave all of myself to you. I know that if this were still true, you would still be mine and I would still be yours. But I ruined it. I hope one day you will find in your heart the forgiveness and love you once had for me to allow me to come into your life again. Know that if you do this, I will always love you and I will never hurt you again. And know that if you don't, I will still always love you. Turning back to the judge, she added, Your Honor, my husband has been more than fair to me. The man I cheated on him with is in jail and on trial for brutally attacking my husband to free me for him. He tried to frame my husband for a crime. I cannot and will not allow Hank to be so hurt, and I will not allow him to continue to suffer because of me. I ask you to sign the divorce petition and satisfy him on whatever terms he proposes. Please just don't let me be the cause of his further pain." I saw tears running down her cheeks. I know that my own eyes gave me problems too. The judge thought about her request for a moment and then asked me a question. "So, Mr. Preston, are you sure you want this divorce? I can schedule consultations." "Your Honor, I love Marie. I will always love Marie. I just can't be her husband anymore. I need to be a man, Your Honor. Marie knew my past, my story. She herself has similar incidents, in fact with the same person with whom she cheated on me, where she was a victim of betrayal. This is essentially the what if she mentioned, I think. I love her, Your Honor. But I can't be her husband. The pain is too great for this." The judge nodded sadly and then picked up his gavel. He looked at Marie for a moment, then at me, then at his hammer. Quickly putting it down, he said, "The application for divorce in the case of Preston v. Preston is granted." Words I once thought I'd never hear. Words that took a part of my soul with them. Words that announced the official end of my marriage to the woman who was probably still the love of my life. We left the courtroom, me with my lawyer, Marie with hers. Tamara stopped me for a moment to discuss the upcoming criminal trial against Williams, mostly advice on behavior. She knew that part of her service to me in this matter was to seek revenge on the bastard. As we were finishing our conversation, I felt a light touch on my shoulder and a familiar scent. I half turned to her. "I hope this helps you find the happiness I stole from you, my love." And then she left, and even in a crowded room, I was left alone. Life went on. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even click to the next one.